Inspiration, clarity, confidence, and wholehearted business strategy. Welcome to Your Next Chapter, the podcast especially for women in their 40s and beyond who know that business and personal development go hand in hand. Tune in each week for marketing, mindset, and personal growth strategies, along with inspiring stories from women around the world who are creating new businesses and lives that are personally fulfilling and financially rewarding. If you're looking to create a business and life you love, you're in great company. Let's find out what will unfold in your next chapter. I'm your host, Angela Raspass, and I'm so delighted that you're here. Well, hello there and welcome to the first episode of the Your Next Chapter podcast for 2017. Now, I'm sitting here thinking, my goodness, has it really been over 2 months since I spoke to you? I cannot believe how fast time has gone, and I know that's a heck of a cliche. We say it all the time, but it really feels so true at the moment. Now, one of the things that happens in my world is that I have a fantastic support circle, and one part of that is a mastermind that I'm in on a fortnightly basis with some gorgeous women over in America. And our mastermind host, Liz Scully, she flits between the UK and America and sometimes some other countries as well. She's definitely got one of those backpack lifestyles or laptop lifestyles, which is hugely appealing for many of us. But that's not the point that I'm making. The point that I wanted to make is that I was in one of my mastermind calls in the last couple of weeks, and I was really giving myself a bit of a smack over the head of, oh, I really should have got an episode out by now. I should have done this. I should have done that. And the girls, my mastermind colleagues, called me on that and said, oi, how about practicing what you preach? You do talk all the time about, with your own clients, about the fact that there isn't a timetable, that you need to lean into what it is that is most important at any given time and prioritize and make decisions. And I spoke to them about how my intuition, which is a part of me that is really starting to develop, and I'm wanting to lean more into it and find out more about it. And I was getting a really strong call to make some changes within my business. And they said, well, why don't you just let people know? And I went, my goodness, there's an idea. So that's exactly what I'm doing today for you. I really appreciate that you take the time to listen to this podcast. And I've got so many awesome interviews that are lined up over the coming months, which I can't wait to share with you. But I wanted to make some overall changes to help serve you better when you wrap this around your ears and listen to the different pieces of advice and stories and backdrops to our lives that wonderful women coming onto this podcast have been sharing. So moving around with the actual format of it, very soon you're going to be experiencing a monthly guest, a little bit different to my normal monthly stories. One of my own secret weapons in the business world is my own mindset mentor, who I've been working with for, well over a couple of years now. Now, Larissa and I have had the most incredible conversations, and I credit her a lot with helping me break out of the comparison trap that I've often found myself in. I credit a lot the conversations that we have together with opening new ways for me to look at myself and look at the business. And to be honest, those conversations have been so powerful that I've decided to bring in Larissa as a regular guest on the podcast. And the very next episode that you'll be hearing will be from Larissa. And we'll be discussing all things mindset, from goal setting to comparisons to definitions of success to change to choices. So many things that I've found personally extremely valuable on this next chapter journey, and I really trust that you will as well. So that's one of the changes that the good old intuition was saying, do this, so I am. I'm also a huge book reader, as you may have picked up if you've been following me or in my world for a while. So the next intention is that on a monthly basis, I'll also be reviewing a book for you and interviewing some of the authors of my very favorite books. Now, if you haven't picked up on one of the interviews I did last year, or the Wholehearted Conversations with Tara Moore, who wrote Playing Big, I really recommend going back and listening to that. It's phenomenal. And there's other books which I am just in love with and will be approaching as many authors as I can. So one thing I've discovered is that a lot of women in my community are book fiends just like me and love devouring books. And so that opportunity to share with you the insights that I've gained from reading and perhaps even introduce you to some of those authors really excites me. And I absolutely believe if there's an idea, something new in your business that you feel really excited about, then pursue it. That's so important. So that's why I'm going to bring that into the podcast, because I really do enjoy that. And what I've found, just on that note, when it comes to reading books, and if you're anything like me, you've probably indulged in a lot of shelf help, as it's being called, lots of books about personal development, spiritual development, and that type of thing, and obviously business development as well. But what I've discovered this might sound really basic, but I've only just discovered it, is to actually have a journal that you keep with you when you're reading a book. Now, if you've got a Kindle, then this works really well, because it's a bit hard to highlight a Kindle or put post-it notes and write in the margins the way that I do in real books. But it works with real books as well. It's to pause after each chapter. Now, to write down, what have you learned from that chapter? What concepts are you going to put into action? What actions are you going to take? And when I started doing that with the books that I'm reading, because I'm thinking or have decided to share them with you, I've found that a book doesn't just touch the surface, it actually dives much deeper down inside. And I do the things that I'm learning, I'm then actually doing something with. And for someone who just ate books and then went to the next one and ate that book and then went to the next one, it's a bit of a revelation. So if this is something that you've been doing, bravo, doesn't it make a difference? But if it's not, then I really encourage you to do that. Just to pause and savor the experience between books and to, take what you've learned and put it into action. So that's another piece that'll be happening in the podcast as I come more regularly to you again in 2017. And I really encourage you, if there is someone that you would love to hear from, or if you have a story that you'd really like to share, then please get in touch. You can simply send me an email at clarity@angelaraspass.com. What I've realized, or I feel is most important in this type of podcast, is the connection between inspiration and possibility. When you can hear the stories of other women who have been moving into their next chapters, and they're sharing how that's been for them and what's been difficult and what's been enjoyable and what's been a challenge and how they've moved around that. When we hear those very real coal-face stories, then it opens doors for us. So that's what I consider myself, is a door opener. I want to hold the door open for you to step through into your next chapter. And the podcast is just one way of doing that. So what else has been happening that I want to share with you? Well, that intuition that I spoke to at the beginning of this wee update, that's come into my next chapter Facebook group as well. Now, if you're a woman in business, or a woman thinking of moving into business, or a woman in her next chapter, which I hope you are, then you may have already got engaged or involved in Facebook groups. And there's quite often theming around the groups, like Monday is Intention Day, and Tuesday is Business Boost Day, and Wednesday is etc., etc. And that's exactly the format that I was following. But then that's when the intuition spoke to me again in early January and said, you know what, this feels really stifling. This doesn't feel open and inclusive and expansive and inspirational. It feels prescriptive. And I didn't like the feeling any longer. So I chose to let go of any of those restrictions in the way that the Facebook group actually works. And I made that change just in the last week. So if you are not yet a part of the Your Next Chapter Facebook group, and it appeals to you, the feeling of being in an environment where there's lots of other women who are testing out their wings in their next chapter. Some are, further down the path and have great advice and experience to share. Some are just starting out and tend to sit back in the wings a little and watch and learn from the people who are interacting. But the atmosphere is changing, and whenever you move into change, you need to bring people along with you and ask people to take the chance and to adopt that new way of being. And that's the change that we're going through in the Facebook group at the moment. And it just feels so much better to me. Now, I can't guarantee it's going to always stay like that. I may get another bolt of intuition in a few months and want to make another change. And you know what? I'm entitled to do that, just as you are entitled to make changes and go in different directions in your own business and life, and to invite your clients, to invite your friends, to invite your support circle to come along with you. And so that's what I'm doing right now. I invite you to come and roll around in the group and get involved. You can just Google us on Facebook. We're under Next Chapter, Your Next Chapter Community. And come on in. It's feeling mighty fine in there at the moment. I also do Facebook Lives in there on usually a weekly basis. So we get the chance to interact. And hopefully you will get something useful from what it is that I'm sharing in there. Other bits and pieces. Last year, if you listen to the podcast that I shared at the end of last year, I was pretty honest about what had been going on, and in particular challenges with my son. But the wonderful news is just last weekend, we took him to start university interstate in Canberra, the Australian National University. And oh my God, it was just amazing to see him blossom. He's come so far from that really, really rough year. And there was more tears, but this time for a very different reason, because he's my firstborn, and when you send your first child out there into the big wide world, look, I know he's coming back in the holidays and that sort of thing, but oh my goodness, it was a really unexpected, well, not so much unexpected, but quite a raw feeling. I guess you call me half an empty nester. My 14-year-old daughter is still at home with us, but I work from home, and I've been so accustomed to having Cameron here that now the house feels really empty. My husband suggested that we get a dog to help keep me company, but the jury's still out on that one. But such a feeling of pride and fear and excitement and sadness and trepidation, just such a mixture of emotions. And what I've learned more than anything in the last 10 years is that you can't fight the feelings. And I had a bit of a talk to myself, because a part of me went, well, you shouldn't be crying, you should be happy. But it's bittersweet. And so the gamut of emotions that I was experiencing and am still experiencing, we're only on day 3 of the post-Cameron era, allowing all of those emotions through, not to deny them, not to push them down, but just to ride them, to let them come out and go through them, because you always come out the other side. And that was a really strong learning point for me, or rather a reflection point, because I know how important it is these days, especially not to numb any of your emotions, and I choose very strongly not to do that anymore. So it was just to share that with you, that whatever it is that you're feeling, whatever it is that you're going through right now, feel every emotion, allow them, surf them, ride them, and you will come through the other side. Look, I've got no doubt there's a whole truckload of emotions that are still ready to park themselves on top of me, but I'm ready for them and I'm okay with them. And I think that's really important, of whatever you're experiencing, to allow that to happen. So it really, overall, when I'm looking back on the last couple of months and moving into this year, which I'm hugely excited about, I've got the most beautiful women to be working with. It brings me back to a fabulous metaphor that I heard from another woman, Carly Nimmo, who has a wonderful podcast. And Carly talked about the difference between glass balls and rubber balls. Now, what do we mean by this? It means it's an acknowledgement that we're always juggling. As women, our lives are rich and varied and complicated and fabulous and stressful and everything in between. And so we're always juggling many, many balls up in the air at once. But the choice that you need to make is, which are the glass balls, the ones that if you dropped them, they would shatter. They're far too precious to drop, versus the rubber balls, the ones that if you do drop them, it's no big deal. They will bounce. It'll be okay. So it's a case of looking at your life at the moment. If you're feeling that, oh my goodness, I've got so much to do, then making a choice as to which of the balls in your life it's okay to drop and which are the ones it just isn't. And I love that metaphor because it helped me make choices over the last couple of months. So, for example, the podcast, I, inverted commas, should have had an episode out, 4 weeks ago. But I decided it was a rubber ball. I trusted that you would still be here when I put out a new episode and started talking about what's in store for 2017. But I wasn't willing to drop the glass ball, which was my family, and getting Cam ready for this transition to ANU, and we're also moving house. We've got open homes going on, etc., etc. So that was just one small example of where I differentiated between the rubber ball and the glass ball. And I ask you to do the same. Sit down today, take a few minutes to have a look at what your plans and goals are at the moment. What are all the different things that you are juggling? Which are the ones that are you able to safely let go of because you ascertain they're rubbery, they will bounce, they will still be there when you turn your attention back around. But those glass balls, those ones that are so important to you, so precious, the ones that you'll cradle close to you and guard and take care of and prioritize, make some of those choices today, because you get to make those decisions. You get to make those choices. And I would encourage you enormously to make sure that one of the glass balls is your own self. In my next chapter circle, the masterminds that is a part of my business, where there's 12 lovely ladies working together at the moment, we have a self-care challenge going on about what is it that you put in place every day to support you so that you can build your business and you can run your life. So I ask you today to take that very seriously. Take yourself as one of the glass balls, the crystal balls, the precious ones that cannot be dropped because they'll shatter. And how will you take care of you? What self-care will you bring into your life? What decisions will you make that prioritize you so that when you turn back around to take care of the other parts of your business and life, you feel refreshed? Because that's how I feel today as I'm talking to you and putting out this little update into the Next Chapter podcast. I feel ready and happy and excited to start, to truly begin this podcast again, because I've taken care of the glass balls and they are so important to me. So thank you again for taking the time to listen today. Thank you for becoming a regular listener. If you're a subscriber, thank you again so much. If you've left me a review in iTunes, thank you again. If you want to correspond with me in any way, with some feedback, with a question, with a suggestion, I always welcome that, because building community and being in wholehearted conversation with my audience, with you, is one of my most joyous things in being able to run my own business. So lots of things in store this year. Looking forward to sharing so many of them with you. And until next time, this is Angela saying take care, have a lovely day, and I will talk with you again really soon. Thanks for listening to the Your Next Chapter podcast. If you've enjoyed this episode, please let me know. Pop over to angelaraspass.com to subscribe to the show and leave a review. And whilst you're there, you can also enjoy valuable free resources, including show notes and downloads, along with the Next Chapter community, where you can connect with other wholehearted women on the same journey as you. We'd love to welcome and support you as your next chapter unfolds. See you next time.